So I owe you all a 3-week update. When I left off last time, I was giving you a summary of week 64 and I was starting week 65. Due to some travel plans, I didn't have the opportunity to do a recording for week 65. Thankfully, I had to schedule my flight after my treatment that morning, so that provided me a window to still record on my numbers. And if you're new here, I am Charles. I am also known as the Brown Mountain Zepbound. So let's get into it. First, week 65. When I wrapped week 64, I weighed in at 203 even. I stated at that time I think my number was inflated due to increased constipation and our water retention due to my treatment. I had consistently been weighing in on Monday somewhere in the 200-pound range, and I will witness my weight increase as the week went on due to the radiation. And I was expecting the same thing to happen this week, but other plans occurred. On Monday, which would have been April 7th, I weighed in at 199.5. That is in line with the 198.2 I had on Monday, March 31st, and the 199.7 I had on Monday, March 24th. This is why I think my Mondays are a better reflection of where my weight actually is. That Monday weigh-in occurs when I have had a few days without any treatment, so no radiation, and before I start treatment each week. So from that perspective, I think I'm doing a really good job of maintaining where I am using the 10 milligram dose. Overall, during week 65, I think I did a great job of having a normal bowel movement, and I think that reflected in my official Friday weigh-in. So on Friday, April 11th, I weighed in at 199.9 with a body fat percentage of 19%. For this week, I only gained less than a half a pound in the 4 days from Monday to Friday, instead of the 3+ pounds I had been experiencing in the many previous weeks. That 199.9 represents the first time my official weigh-in was sub 200. It was not the first time I was below 200, just the first official Friday weigh-in that occurred. Overall, it was the 7th sub 200 weigh-in that I've had. So the 199.9 represents a 3.1 pound loss from week 64, which pushed my total weight loss on a GLP-1 to 115.2 pounds and put my percentage of weight loss at 36.6. That is my week 65 summary. Now on to week 66. I was hoping to have a very similar week to week 65. Of course, there is no way that was going to happen. With doing all the traveling I was doing, I figured that it would be a challenge, and it was. We ate out every night, every single meal from Friday night to Sunday night, breakfast sandwiches from a food truck, pizza I believe we had twice. We went to the Cheesecake Factory, had a few donuts, had some ice cream and a few other things. I was just enjoying myself. We were out having fun away from home. But the medication did keep me in check. I didn't go overboard. However, I did waste a lot of money at Cheesecake Factory. I got the Baja chicken tacos with the intention of not eating the rice or the beans, but I ended up only eating 1.5 of the 4 tacos because I got full real quick. But I also didn't really like the food either. So I won't be having that if I ever go back there again. I'm not a real big Cheesecake Factory fan in the first place, other than their cheesecake, which I haven't had in a while. I did get a workout in at the hotel gym on that Sunday morning. I did an hour on the treadmill, and I did a lot of walking around Washington Park in Portland, a very popular attraction in Portland. If you're ever in town and you like roses and beautiful views, check it out. There's a great view of Mount Hood in the background from that location. A great place to hike or just take pictures, and it's right next to the Oregon Zoo if you're so inclined to go. We got back in town in Vegas late on Sunday night, and I did not weigh in at all during the week. I did do a couple of quick scale step-ons, and I stepped off real quick before the scale had a chance to record the weigh-in. I think I was somewhere around 200 on Monday, and I saw it creeping up on Wednesday. I believe I was somewhere north of 201 pounds. I did struggle a lot with my bowel movements this week. I ran out of Mango 7, and since it's on a subscription at Amazon, it wasn't going to get delivered until the 22nd of April. So I had been substituting some stool softener, which was not very effective, but I did do the half bottles of magnesium citrate on both Tuesdays and Thursday, like I had been doing, which was very effective on those days. As for the workouts that week, like I mentioned, I did the hour on the treadmill on Sunday at the hotel. I hit my local gym on Wednesday night for a regular workout because I missed my normal Tuesday workout day We had some family coming to town on Wednesday night. They were coming in to watch WrestleMania, which was in town for the weekend. They flew in late on Wednesday night, so I picked them up from the airport at 11 p.m. So I didn't get to the gym on Thursday morning like I would have. I was just tired and I had to get my treatment, so I just let it go. I did do some walking in my breaks at work at the office, just to get some movement in. Now to the numbers for the week. When I completed week 64, I weighed in at 199.9. When I weighed in at Friday, April 18th, I was back up, this time up to 203.4. So a gain of 3.5 pounds. I think this is just indicative of how bad of a week it was for me with the constipation and not having a Magel 7. And this is clearly reflected in my body fat percentage. It was now showing 19.6%, up from 19%. Seeing these fluctuations in my body fat percentage got me thinking, intuitively, I knew going from 19% to 19.6% had to do with my constipation. But because I like to be informed and educated, I investigated how the body composition scales accounts for waste in the body. So if you didn't know, body composition scales that use bioelectrical impedance analysis, or BIA, will count your waste as fat because feces, like fat, does not conduct electricity. So a BIA scale will determine it to be fat. When my body fat percentage is 19.2% or higher, that's an indicator to me now that not everything has exited my body. Now back to the weight. So the 203.4 pound represents a 3.4 pound gain from week 65, which moved my total weight loss on a GLP-1 to 111.7 pounds and put my percentage of weight loss at 35.4%. So that is my week 66 summary. So now on to a very, very interesting week 67. Week 67 was the week from hell, an absolute nightmare. It had me down, and normally I would have eaten a bunch of junk to medicate myself. I will get into the details as I summarize the week. I took my week 67 injection on April 18th. I got a side effect that I had gotten one time before, maybe once or twice. I've heard of others mentioning that they had this experience, but it hasn't been a big thing in my journey. And I am talking about allodynia, which is when your skin gets sensitive to touch. For me, this week it was on my ring finger on my right hand and then on the top of my right hand. It lasted Friday and most of the day on Saturday, and then it went away. So I will see if it comes back with next week's injection. On Saturday, I just couldn't deal with the constipation anymore. I just felt off. I needed to do something about it. Waiting for the 22nd wasn't going to work for me any longer. So I went out. I had an appointment to get my blood work done that Saturday. Ahead of my appointment with my PCP, I stopped by a Sprouts to get a bottle of Magel 7. And then guess what? Amazon delivered the Magel 7 I was waiting for. That was supposed to be delivered on the 22nd. They delivered it on the 19th because, of course, they did. The good news is I now have 2 bottles, and I should never be in a situation where I run out again. Fingers crossed about that. So I started taking the Magel 7 right away, and I was in the bathroom multiple times on both Saturday and Sunday, getting rid of the backlog. Now on to the big events of the week. On Sunday, I realized that I had scheduled my departure flight for a business trip at 7 a.m. on the same morning I have an 8 a.m. appointment with my PCP. So I was trying to change the flight to a later time online, and the system wouldn't let me do it. So I had to call our travel agency to have them do it. As part of the verification process, they asked me for the last 4 digits of my T&E card, which was in my wallet, which I had left in the car. So I jumped up to run to the garage, and the last thing I remember is feeling lightheaded and grabbing my key fob to unlock the car door. I never made it inside the garage. Next thing I know, I am laying on the ground with my head hurting. My phone was 2 feet away from me. I came through, and I remember I was on the phone with a representative. So I say to her, "I'm sorry. What was your question again?" But of course, like I just mentioned, my phone was 2 feet away from me, and at no point did I have my AirPods on. and I didn't know what I was doing. For some reason, I was just talking on the phone without having a phone. So I get up and I gather myself. I grab my phone and I hang it up because I'm just kind of discombobulated. And then I realized that I passed out. I hit my head on the dining room table. I moved the table like 3 inches. My glasses fell off and they are ruined. The lenses on my glasses were all scratched up. So I'm guessing they hit the table as I plowed face first into it. Thankfully, I have these as a backup, but I had to order some replacement glasses. So that set me back $441. I think I just got up too fast and my blood pressure dropped, a condition that is known as orthostatic hypotension. I guess this is something that can happen on a GLP-1, so be mindful about getting up too fast from a seated or laying position. I have to remember to do it slowly and collect myself before I start moving. And if that wasn't enough, falling, passing out, hitting my head on the table, and ruining my glasses, I also got a big bolt in my front passenger side tire. I tried a Hail Mary, and I took it to a tire shop to see if they could patch it. And of course, they couldn't, so I decided to drive to Costco, knowing that this one tire was going to cost me over $1,000 because I would have to replace all 4 tires. I was probably about 3 to 5 months from having to do that anyway. With losing that one tire, I just had to bite down and do all 4 of them and get that out the way. After I leave the tire place, I get on the freeway. I'm driving slow, trying to make it to Costco. I'm in the slow lane, and I hear the bolt come out of the tire, and the alarm systems start going off on my car that my tire was deflating. And by the time I got to the shoulder, it was completely flat. I called AAA to change my tire, and I completely forgot that I had wheel locks on, and the wheel lock key, of course, was at home. And when AAA gets there, they can't change the tire and put on the spare because of the wheel lock. So this results in me having to contact AAA again to get them to get an actual tow truck to me to get me to Costco. And when I get to Costco, of course, they don't have a universal wheel lock. So I must have the tow truck leave my car there so I can park it there overnight because Costco was going to close and I would have to go home and find the wheel lock. So $1,200 later, I have 4 new tires. And did I mention I also took a rock in the windshield? Hopefully this isn't a deductible repair. If so, it's possible that week 67 may have cost me close to $2,000 when you add up the tires, the glasses, and the windshield. Hopefully it's a easy repair and they don't have to charge the deductible. Either way, it was a very costly week for me. So we won't be talking about week 67 ever again. On to my numbers for week 67. On Monday, I was down to 200.5 with a fat percentage of 19.3%. So the Magle 7 worked well in getting me mostly cleaned out. I weighed again on Friday, my official weigh-in day, and my weight had increased from Monday, which was expected due to the treatment, but it was minimal compared to what I had seen in previous weeks. My weight this morning was 201.9, so I gained 1.4 pounds across those four days from Monday to Friday. However, I am down 1.5 pounds from the previous week. Now, I just have 1 day of treatment left, just 1 day, and I'm done with my prostate cancer treatment. So I'm really interested to see how things shake out next week. I'm hoping I can fully resolve this constipation with my treatments coming to an end. And overall, I'm just excited about ending my treatment and ringing that bell. So my fat percentage this week for today's weigh-in was 19.2%. So I hit that cutoff right where it's telling me that I was holding on to something still, which I really was, because when I got on the treatment table, when I went into treatment, I thought I was going to have an explosive moment. And that would have been all bad. Could you imagine? That would have been all bad. Thankfully, I was able to hold things in and leave the treatment facility and get to a restroom. In summary, my weight for week 67 was 201.9. This moved my total loss to 113.2 since starting my GLP-1 journey back on January 12th of 2024. And that represents a 35.9% loss from my starting weight of 315.1. I am 6'2", so my BMI, which is now at 205.9, is down from 40.5. My scale measured my fat percentage at 19.2%. My blood pressure was 107/62 this morning. In total, I'm down 156 from my highest weight of 358 in 2015, and that represents a 43.6% loss from that weight. So thanks for checking in with me and catching up on those 3 weeks. Hope you all have a great weekend, and I will see you in the comments.